welcome to the first ever Diablo4 campfire chat.
Now, this is not
First ever.
This is not a live stream.
This is not. Well, this is.
Even though it's live.
It is live.
It's not a dev stream.
It's not a developer update live stream.
Right.
As you
캠프파이어 이름 달고 하는 거
it's a little
처음이래.
bit different than what we had before. We still will have developer update live streams, but campfire chats. This is kind of a new show for us. We
소리는 괜찮나요? 좀 작나요?
Get an opportunity to get in front of the community and use.
중요한 얘기 나오면 얘기해 드릴게요. 동시통역할 정도는 아니고.
Talk with you guys
작아요?
whenever we need to, and in a casual format. So don't expect a lot of like trailers or videos and so forth in this one. We still will have developer update live streams. Our next one is going to be in July, but we are
좀 큰가
most definitely
이러면?
going to have
이게
more of these
최대로 키운
campfire
거거든요.
chats here
좀
in the
줄여야
future. And with those developer update live streams, you will get those big announcements and the big reveals and us going into more detail about big
자막은 안
updates
나오죠.
that might be coming up in the future. But for campfire chats, we
근데
want to use
게임
this
방송에
format
보다
to kind
보면
of chat with
영어
the
잘
community
몰라도
and make sure that you
들을만해.
all get an opportunity to actually hear from us and talk to us a little bit more often.
I still think my brand, like I was saying, if we keep this seating arrangement instead of between two ferns, be between two jerks, but he wouldn't go for it.
Rod made up this joke literally 30 seconds ago, so.
Like, aren't you supposed to make up jokes?
별로
Like,
없을 것
what,
같은데.
you like script all your jokes? So you workshop them?
I mean, it didn't
You go,
work
like,
30 seconds ago.
You know, sometimes you have to be funny off camera and then try to be funny on camera. You know, it doesn't always. Magic has to happen when it happens.
Well, magic that did happen.
So you can see why this is a campfire.
Yeah. And we have to get we actually have to get a campfire in
You
here.
do, or at least a flickering orange light.
And then
movie magic.
Well, a flickering light as opposed to a real campfire, so we don't burn down everything. And then
That's security watch you're allowed.
And then suddenly everyone will hate us. But we.
I brought s'mores.
You did.
Yeah.
몇 명 보고
I
있냐?
brought a version of s'mores. Like, I wanted Oreo s'mores, and I got
만 명 보고
Target,
있냐?
like, gerbated me. So I'm like, I have the Target brand s'mores flavored cookies. So if we want to really get into the campfire notion, we could.
채팅
eat s'mores
막아놨어.
while talking
Rod
about
just
the
wanted
game.
to eat
I just
on
want to
camera.
eat cookies. You don't get a body like this without eating cookies, Tiffany. Like, come on.
Rod also has explained to us 3 or 4 different
네,
times
채팅 막아놨어요.
unsuccessful attempts at buying s'mores.
I had a lot of desire to acquire Oreo s'mores last.
It's been a morning.
S'moreos.
S'moreos.
I'm sorry, I'm saying it
S'moreos.
incorrectly. I wanted s'moreos last time.
잡담은 딱히 내용 다 안 말해드릴게요.
my
그냥 게임 관련 내용 좀 중요한 거 나오면 말할 건데 안 나올 것 같아요. 오늘 얘네 하는 거 보니까.
Sounds good. Well, while Rod is doing that, we do want to talk about launch and how that went. Obviously, D4 is now out in the wild. We had a.
아, 나 런치라 그래가지고 얘네 점심 뭐 먹었나 얘기하는 줄 알았네.
We know the community's been really amped about the game. Reviews have been really good. You know, it's been a couple weeks since launch itself, and also.
출시 오버뷰 얘기하는 것 같은데. 그냥 얘네 판매량 얼마인지 자화자찬하고 축하하고 이러고 끝내면 안 되는데.
By the way, I haven't done
You didn't even introduce
I
people.
didn't even
You're a
introduce
terrible
people.
This is
host.
completely
This is why it's
unscripted.
between two jerks. You didn't
Awful.
even introduce people.
Awful. All right, let me do that first before we
Did
actually.
you just make Joe Shelley facepalm?
It's the s'mores thing and the really bad joke. It's just
Can
throwing
I
me
crinkle the
off.
plastic while you do?
Right next to your mic.
Exactly.
Right next to
And- Yeah. as
요거
you,
다음에.
bite into the
아 근데 뭐
plastic
키고 나서 요 정도
and
축하.
so forth.
야 너는 지금 뭘 집어먹냐? 아니
All right,
과자를
well,
까고
we have
있네.
Joe Shelley here, who's the game director for Diablo4. We have Tiffany.
아저씨 지금 그거 먹으면 안 돼요, 네.
Associate production director for Diablo4, and then. of
아저씨 좀만 더 찜 중등도 비만
The
돼.
notion
S'moreo
that-
connoisseur.
Yeah, the S'moreo addict. But I mean, beyond just associate production, like Tiffany's.
아니 저 아저씨 당 떨어져갖고 쿠키에 손댄 거 싫어요? 방송 시작한 지 3분 됐는데?
The things you're like, but live ops is your thing, right? It's kind of the thing.
Yes, it's one of the things I'm very passionate about. I work with a very, very large live ops team that goes beyond just the Diablo4 team. So definitely congratulations to everybody across Blizzard that's been supporting us. Lots of time spent in the war room. Lots of
자화자찬
Adam.
중입니다.
Adam was
Which is, it's a penalty
It's a-
unto
it's
a
itself.
penalty. Yes, is the worst
Absolutely
part.
awful.
No, it was really exciting to work with people across the globe. So lots of Zoom chats, but also a physical war room here on campus, and it was just really cool to finally launch this game, work with so many people to bring it to so many players. So congratulations to everybody, and I'm really glad that everybody is playing.
Yes.
지금 아니 그러니까
we have sort
우리
of
플레이하는
in a
거
way
너무
of
반갑다
like
이런 소리 하지
a great
말고.
launch, right? Like the notion of sometimes you can have a really awesome game and
네,
the
바알인
launch
것
doesn't get
같네요.
in the way of it. You don't get to
바알하고
experience that
TDL?
great game the way you
아니다.
want to.
저거는
And so I think the two great people to represent the
붙잡혀 있는 거 보니까
you know,
이나리우스 같은데요?
90 rated game and then the ability to play it since it was launched, you know, so it's awesome. And yeah, thank you so much to everybody who play. You know, we just crossed 350 million hours of play, which is phenomenal and very exciting. So again, thank you so much. And part of this conversation, I think, really is about that. Like, what happens to a game that gets 350 million hours of play against it? And so, you know, obviously when you're making the game, you can't apply 350 million hours of playtime against it to find, oh, maybe this balance isn't quite what we wanted, or this feature isn't working quite the way we want. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to kind of talk about, you know, now that we've seen it out there for, by the way, it's only been 10 days. And, you know, we talk about the Diablo 4. This launch is really just the beginning of our journey with Diablo 4. You know, this is something we're going to support for years
근데 왜
to
킨
come.
걸까?
We're working on seasons. We're working on expansions. Notice that was a plural word. And so like all that stuff is going into the future. And so the fact that we love the feedback, we're on day 10, and you know, and that's something that we're really sort of, this is the kind of stuff we're focused on. I do like if I can stay on my soapbox for just 1 second. Can I stay on my soapbox?
Yes.
I do want to like. I think one of the conversations we can have is
개발자
around,
업데이트랑 다른 거라 그래서
the
봤어요.
expectation around changes, because I find like in a live service like this, in Tiffany's world, the notion of a hot fix, which is how would you like describe to somebody who maybe doesn't understand, like whenever Adam's like, we're doing another hot fix, like what is a hot fix from a player's perspective?
So there's a lot of issues that we are able to hotfix on the server, whether it's server code or server data. And those are ones that generally we can turn around a little bit quicker. Obviously, we want to make sure that the fix is solid, doesn't break anything else in the game, that our QA team has an opportunity to run through it and ensure that if we roll it out, when we roll it out to the servers, to all of our players, that it actually improves the game and fixes the issue that we've come across.
근데 핫픽스 많이 하긴
We
했죠.
also have the opportunity
반응도
to
빨랐고.
client fixes. Those ones are just, it requires an update to the actual player's client. In both cases, for the most part, they are seamless so that players can get that change while they're playing the game. I'm sure you've noticed sometimes when you're logging out that your Battle.net client will pick up an update.
근데 핫픽스를 빠르게 한 건 좋은데 방향성이 좀 안
So
좋았어.
the next time that you log in and play Diablo 4, you pick up that client update. Hotfixes are seamless. So as you're playing and you're doing server transitions, as you're going through the world, you'll automatically pick up that update. In both cases, should be seamless and something that we work very, very hard on. Client fixes tend to take a little bit more time to get out to our players. We want to treat all of our players. I mean, I'm a console player myself. I know that Joe Shelley plays on console. Rod Ferguson plays on console. And PC. Super important that we get these fixes out to our players.
저 방금 NPC 10마리 데리고 다니던 버그 있었는데
everyone
픽스해주세요.
that plays Diablo 4, regardless of how they're playing, can experience the same game and the same quality of experience.
I think for the client, what
진짜 하지만
when
빨랐잖아요.
you're playing on your actual device, that because we support multiple platforms, we have to often go through certification, and so that's one of the things around pacing that we have to oftentimes pre-plan out what we're fixing, and so hot fixes are stuff we can kind of do on the fly. It doesn't require a certification pass. Again, it's meant to be seamless. So occasionally we'll have some hiccups as we, but it's sort of philosophically, it's something that we decided as a team that rather than bringing the whole game down for an hour to roll out a server change, we would do sort of this sort of rolling changes. And 9 times out of 10, no issues. Occasionally, based on just the scale, like we haven't worked at the scale before, and so sometimes when you're refreshing this number of servers with this number of players on it, we could hit a hiccup. And we've hit a couple, during launch that. But our intention is to keep the game up all the time and just try to. But that being said, like I said, we often want to plan well in advance because we have to QA it. It's not like we can turn. That's one of the things I feel like the feedback is like.
이 아저씨는 빨리 끝내고 과자 먹고 싶어 하는 것 같은데.
I would love to do that for you, but we have to go through CERT and we have to QA it and we have to do all this work, and so we already have a big, real patch coming. And so that's something that's gone through certification. It's out there. It's going to address a lot of things, including performance issues. And it's so big, we're actually talking about there's the potential we may actually choose to have a maintenance window and say, like, we're going to bring the whole game down, we're going to apply this big patch, and then we're going to bring it all back up. Like, you have an artifact of said patch, do you not?
I do.
Am I ruining your agenda, by the way?
Slightly, but it's okay.
It's a campfire talk. It's a campfire chat.
Campfire chats.
뭔가 새로운 컨텐츠나 이런 내용 나오면은 말씀드리려고 보고 있는데 얘기할 만한 게 없어.
Chonky patch.
그 전에 디아 방송은 많이 했는데 이렇게.
Chonky is the perfect way of describing it. That addresses a lot of things, and this right here is actually it's 13 pages, but it's not even done yet. But it is just an early preview of kind of what we're putting together. And I have it here. We probably won't
저거 오늘
go into
30페이지 다
detail of it
한다고요?
all, but we will have it posted obviously when the patch does actually hit. But we do have a lot of different topics we did want to talk about.
But which are this.
Yes.
Like this is we're talking about stuff that actually reacting to what's going on as opposed to things we already knew we wanted to fix.
And the other thing I wanted to at least let other people know is we were in this initial launch window.
13페이지.
So hotfixes were coming super quick, at a rapid pace. Because we're trying to, when you have this many players hitting the game, a lot of things kind of crop up.
근데 오늘 아무 내용도 없는 건 아닌가 본데요?
Get those hotfixes out. Same with the small client patches. I know a lot of people are going but it said further bug fixes and stability. A lot of that stuff is on the back end to make sure things keep up with players. And
세 번째 아저씨는 피곤상인 게 피곤상 맞는 것 같아요. 저번에 블리즈컨 때도 이러셨어요.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. When we say something like further bug fixes and stability, that's not include. It's not like that bug fix includes a change to Whirlwind or something.
Yeah.
It's some bug with a name that is comprehensible to our engineers got fixed, right? And so it ends up not being very useful to go into a lot of detail.
시즌 1 때 어떤 거 나오는지라도 조금 풀어주면 기대감 있게 게임 할 것 같은데.
That we call that out.
Yeah, if there's player-facing stuff, we'll most definitely end up calling that out. In regards to some at least how launch has gone and feedback that we've gotten from the community, we've heard a lot of different topics within the community itself. People just chatting with us or hitting us up on social media.
I think it's one of the interesting aspects is I wanted to create this meme of we want a balanced game where there's no meta and every build is viable, and everybody's like, yay! And they're we've reduced the power of this class, and what's going on?
이런 거는 좀 들을만하죠.
We have a philosophy.
그러니까 우리가 막 주책 부리는 거
of
하는 게
balancing
아니고.
the game, whether that be the world or the classes, there will be pluses and minuses that have to be applied to the game, and the notion of, oh look, I remember Destiny 2 had Loot Cave, and we're there's a loot cave, let's just sit here and farm loot, and we're having so much fun. It's Christmas morning all day long, and that can't persist. For the good of the game, that has to not exist at some point, right? And so that's a problem that they fixed, and you understand eventually why they did that. I think there's some of that when we have 350 million hours playing against the game, and we go across your intentions from a design perspective about how do you want players to be gaining XP and sort of growing their levels and kind of what is their path for? It felt like what we started to see was that a player pattern that was non-ideal. It's a player behavior that you wanted to sort of that was being revealed through play, that amount of play.
Yeah, so that's generally true. The way I would talk about it is that, and we've talked about consistently throughout development that our goal is to have a lot of choice for players,
right?
Both in terms of being able to make having lots of good choices for where you're going to level or acquire loot, and also in terms of your character having lots of choices.
빌드 다양성 얘기하는 건가요?
Sometimes people will say well, can't you? Anytime something is too strong, can't you just buff everyone else?
Right.
And while in theory you can do that, when you have many classes and many builds, and you have one thing that is too strong, the process of buffing everything else, A, is likely to result in more balanced issues because you're changing many things at once, and B, you can very quickly run into a place where you have 65,000% on Whirlwind or something,
Right.
and it can get it can get.
그러니까 왜 하향 평준화를 하는지를 얘기하고 있어요.
So yeah, I mean sometimes we have to make changes. We have to nerf things sometimes. But our philosophy is to prioritize improving choice by looking at things that are not working and making them better. Now, it hasn't felt like that in the last 2 weeks.
Right.
Right. You know, when I came here today, I was thinking about. I don't have a shirt like this, but I thought about like getting a shirt and then writing. It's time for the buffs.
We can make you one.
I didn't do that, but it is.
But
It is
maybe have a
time for the
buff shirt, it
buffs.
has to be Adam.
Yeah.
You're never invited to one of these.
But seriously, you know, I think we have some things we want to
Yes.
go over here.
We do.
That the community has called out through various formats, through videos and posts.
Videos, posts on our forums, which we really appreciate. Anyone who posts on our forums, we are completely scouring our forums for feedback and so forth. Posts on social media, on Reddit, conversations that people are having in
근데
videos.
하향 평준화는 맞는 방법이긴 해요.
That are actually creating.
네, 하향 평준화도 방향성이
videos that are
있는데
talking about specific topics. So we kind of compiled a good list of like hot topics that I think that the community has been wanting to hear more about, and we do want to go through those and actually talk about them a little bit more in detail. I think probably the biggest one I think that people have been talking about the most has been around dungeons. As you guys know, like we've had a few hot fixes, and by few I mean 4 in a row. Yes,
Yeah.
Totally understand. Of hot fixes where we do where we had a line where we did mention that we were reducing like elite pack levels and so forth, or adjusting them specifically in certain dungeons.
근데 사실
With the
핫픽스나
goal
방향성
to
이런 건
be,
별기대 안
longer
하니까
dungeons
1시즌 때
having
뭐 하는지 좀 빨리 말해줬으면 좋겠는데.
elite packs, and of course shorter ones having, you know, less than what a longer one would specifically have. But I would say like we've really gotten to kind of like a new baseline now of
Yeah.
like where we are.
It seemed like it was
for
a
that.
contrast thing, like and Joe can speak to, but like I think the expectation was, oh, nightmare dungeons are the end game. That's the place I'm going to go, you know, quote unquote farm. But right now, the normal dungeons, because the elite density is so high, it's better to farm a normal dungeon than it is a nightmare. And so they seemed like they were kind of slightly out of whack from that perspective. I don't know if that's a technical term, slightly out of whack, but.
I've seen it many times.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Is that accurate, or how do you feel?
Yeah, we had some cases where among side dungeons, some side dungeons had dramatically more elites than other side dungeons, and so it really felt
사이드 던전이라 그러는 게 그런 거 말하는 거예요? 선조 같은 거 우리가 도는 거?
it only made sense to farm those.
Right.
But more broadly, I mean, you were talking about nightmare dungeons. Nightmare dungeons have, first off, actually, you know, the significant majority of our players haven't finished the campaign yet. So there are lots of players that are still playing through the campaign.
Right.
But many of the people who are watching this stream, in fact, and our dedicated players play through content much more quickly.
Right.
And have been experiencing this situation with the dungeons, right? So going to nightmare dungeons. Nightmare dungeons are explicitly set up to be highly replayable, right? Through the sigil affixes, through the variety of nightmare dungeons that are available.
아, 악몽 던전에서만 시즌 에픽이 나올 수가 있다는 거예요? 뭐예요 이게?
And so we want them to be a great place to farm, including if you want to farm dungeons
지금은 안
over and
그러잖아.
over. If you want to loop dungeons, nightmare dungeons are set up to be good at doing that.
That's
right?
the intention.
Yeah. So what we're going to do there is we're going to increase the amount of XP that you get from nightmare dungeons, and our goal with this is to.
근데 블리자드는 유저들을 너무 물러봐. 무슨 디아블로 잡을 때까지 6개월 걸렸다 그랬는데 나도 하루 걸렸어.
And does that take into
Diablo
account
3
like nightmare dungeons have essentially a travel time to get to them?
Right. So this is a great point. So in order to, when you think about efficiency, if you think about XP per hour or XP per minute, and we actually have telemetry on this so we can see what it looks like. You can't just look at the XP that you're getting from the Nightmare Dungeon, because you have to spend some of the time traveling to that Nightmare Dungeon. And in fact, Nightmare Dungeons are a variety of distances away from the nearest waypoint or teleport. So it actually varies depending on which Nightmare Dungeon you're going to. And so that can also have the effect, if you're thinking about the efficiency aspect of it, of XP per hour or loot.
그래, 이거 입구 들어갈 때 이동거리 얘기하고 있거든요.
sort of
이거 문제인 거 알고
making
있네.
it hard to justify choosing a Nightmare Dungeon that's far from a teleport point.
Sure.
So the second thing that we're going to do here is we're going to modify the way that sigils work so that they teleport you to Nightmare Dungeons on use.
So they teleport you, or do they create a place?
악몽 던전 텔레포트해서 갈 수 있게
They will
해준대요.
create a waypoint that allows you to teleport. But yes, you'll be able to teleport to. That's an important distinction.
Right.
제가 제대로 들은 게 맞나요? 그런 거
The effect
같은데요?
is that you'll be able to teleport to your Nightmare Dungeons, and you'll be able to loot from the end of a Nightmare Dungeon into your next Nightmare.
그러니까 이런 얘기를 좀 듣고 얘기해 주려고 지금
Right,
방송 본
yeah,
건데.
you have to leave the Nightmare Dungeon using an interface, but you'll be able to go from Nightmare Dungeon to Nightmare Dungeon without traveling between them,
Right.
and that allows
따로
us
적어놔야
to
되겠다, 중요한 내용들.
have the XP, calculate the XP buff to make sure that those are the most efficient to do, because we're removing the travel time aspect of it.
Okay. So we're improving the rewards from Nightmare Dungeons to make them more what the intention was. That's the place you farm.
Yeah.
We're removing the need to have a travel time, because a waypoint will appear and you and your party can go there, so it shortens it.
Right.
Like the waypoint one in particular sounds like a reasonably large change. So from a player perspective, what should expectations be about? Hey, that sounds awesome, or at least for me, I'm responding. That sounds awesome. I don't know
그러니까
if
해주는
it
게
is,
어디요,
but
그죠?
I think that sounds awesome. So what kind of timing, what range of timing are you thinking?
It is. It is. You know, Tiffany was just talking about like the kinds of things that we can do very quickly and easily. This
isn't supposed to be one of
it's a
them.
little. But
또 다른
this
얘기하면
is
또 얘기해
something that's
드릴게요.
really important to many of our most dedicated players, and so we're working very hard on this right now
모르겠어요. 언제 업데이트 한다고는 말 안 하네요.
as well
그냥 그럴 계획이라고만
to
말하고.
get it in before season 1 launches.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I know Tiffany and the live ops team I know have been working really tough on working a lot.
근데 얘네도 그거는 알고 있나 봐요. 악몽 던전이 지금
before season 1.
우리의 목표 의식을 못 불러일으키는 걸 알고 있나 봐. 계획하고 있대요. 악몽 던전에서 아까 얘기한 건 악몽 던전에서만 떨어지는 템들도 있을 거고.
Before season 1, so players can actually experience it and use sigils to really teleport to Nightmare Dungeons and use that as a way of kind of incentivizing. And with Nightmare Dungeons XP being buffed, and it should be a new the way that players end up.
네네, 시즌 1 전에 있을 거라 그랬어요. 백랩 하나 찍어놔야 되겠다.
They have the Nightmare Dungeon options.
So and then for people who
그래, 그거 진작해야지. 악몽 던전 경험치 버프 얘기
following on all
됐고요.
the time. Right now, season 1, we're saying mid to late July.
Mid to late July.
So we're saying that this change could happen anytime between, in the next 4 weeks or whatever.
Correct.
So that's what we're focused on. But again, I think the waypoint teleportation, we have to get that right. Like there's a lot that goes on there. So there's a bunch of QA we have to do to make sure we don't mess with parties and everything else, right? So we want to go as quickly as possible, but we also have to go as safely as possible. The last thing we want to do is rush something. So I use the phrase "don't shake the jello," which is the notion of like your jello mold is trying to set, and if you keep poking it, it won't ever.
오늘 방송 보기 잘했다. 정보 많네요.
And that's kind of the thing we worry about here is that with all that, what are we at? Hotfix 9 we've put out so far.
We're actually at 11.
We are at 11.
I missed one. And with also our client patches, like we're constantly sort of poking, and if you do that without proper QA and proper testing to make sure you're not shaking something out of alignment, because I think we've had that where we've maybe rushed a patch and then that caused something else to slightly not go the way we want.
일단 정확한 기간은 안 했는데 한 달 내로 한다 그랬던
We
것
want to
같아요.
be as responsive as possible, but we also want to be as safe as possible.
근데 제가 영어를 잘하는 게 아니라 정확히 몰라요. 아시죠?
Yeah, I mean,
Shout out to Hotfix 11 for fixing some of the things that we
may have broken the previous one.
the teleport should take you to the dungeon and not under the world or
Yes.
in front of Lilith.
Major shout out to our QA team because we have put out, I think it's just at 11 hotfixes, and want to say 8 or 9 client patches. So definite kudos to them.
Yes.
Speaking of season 1,
일단
I am looking
시즌 1
forward to
얘기하네요.
it. I'm a necro player as well, I believe Rod is. So you know, definitely looking through that chonky patch to make sure that my class gets buffed, as Joe said. But you know, I've been collecting
Now, you
renown.
just promised. You realize what you just did,
Yes.
right?
This is
you
why
just
you-
promised
you know,
necro buffs
well
to
now
people.
Joe has to do it
Yeah, I
because
know.
I said
Is that
it.
how it works?
Yes, it is how it
Oh,
works.
okay, great.
I didn't tell him that, but now he knows. I'm looking forward to season 1. I am curious because I think a lot of the community is curious, you know, will I have to recollect all those altars of Lilith? Do I get to carry over those primary stat bonuses that I'm earning? What about my map? Don't really want to have to rediscover it. So Rod, what's season 1 going to look like for me when I roll a rogue?
근데 이번 정도면 버그 심하지 않은데?
Well, I mean, one of the cool things you and I both experienced a lot with our necro play is the blighted corpse problem, right?
Yes.
Which is the, I think
I
Josh
don't know,
calls
that's
them.
one of the cool things.
Well, no, it is a cool thing. I think Josh calls them corpse farts, but like he's like, I'm trying to get through
Alright.
this with corpse farts. I don't. It's not my favorite term, but anyway, like, but we know that the opaqueness of that effect is sometimes can be an explosion waiting for you underneath there, and you can die. because
It
you
is a
didn't see
bug, yes. That is one of the things
See how
we are
it-
fixing.
I'm just like
Yes.
judoed that question.
Yes, you
back
totally
to
did.
it.
And I actually care a lot about this because I use Blighted Corpse on my Necro. That is included in one of our upcoming patches. It is a bug. I know there was some discussion of like, is this intentional? It's not intentional. We will be fixing it and making it a little bit easier in general to be able to see which of the dangerous effects on the ground, making sure that's always readable to the player. So making sure our sort order is correct. You know, if there's a Fire Enchanted, which is it's the affix that always gets me, that I can definitely see it because right now with all the corpse farts on the ground,
See how easy it is to just.
계속 시폭 얘기하는 것 같은데?
I can. It's very difficult for me to see a lot of the affixes or some of the enemy or PvP fire on the ground. So looking forward to this.
근데 좀 가시성이
But yes,
떨어지긴 함.
going back to
Back to
season 1.
renown. Yeah, I think the big thing that we're seeing, you know, one of the big questions I think, especially new players, if you've played Diablo 3 before, you're familiar with the seasonal kind of reset. That idea of like, oh, it's a new season. There may be new balances, especially like in Diablo 3, they changed how sets work and all these sorts of things. So there's an interesting like, oh, I want to go back and experience this, whatever new changes are in the season or new mechanics. And that's still true in Diablo 4, that idea that there's that sense of
거미줄도
progression,
일종의
like,
장판이죠.
trying something new, experiencing the new mechanics in the world from a new place where like, otherwise it becomes this huge sort of power creep. But obviously, like, part of the feedback is people now are starting to complete the campaign and they're starting to look forward to season 1 coming mid to late July. They're wondering, like, wait, when we talk about resets, how do I think about the renown system in particular? And so one of the things, what will happen is that I think we started off in one place and we're kind of ending up in another place, which is kind of interesting. Is we started off from a, hey, we want as much of that feeling of progression as possible. So rediscovering things isn't that bad because you're like, oh, I get to do this really cool. But I think we're starting to feel with alt characters that notion of, oh, the fog of war between characters doesn't feel great. And like the Lilith altars doesn't necessarily feel great. And so that's something we're going to do. And we'll be continuing to evaluate what should and shouldn't be reset as part of that. I mean, much like once you complete the campaign on one character on your account, you can skip campaign from every character from there on through every season and basically, like I said, I won't promise expansions, but I believe expansions do. Not to lock stuff in too early. But that notion that you only have to complete, that's kind of the thinking we have. So right now for Renown, what we're talking about is as we go into season 1, when the amount of
그런 것도 얘기해주면 좋겠는데 악몽 던전 맵 옵션이 너무 불쾌한 게 많아요. 게임 재미를 떨어뜨림. 어려운 게 문제가 아니고.
The Eternal Realm will be what you see in the season, so you don't have to go and reveal the map again. And the only capital city waypoints I think will be active, much like it is now. So, but you'll see them; they'll just be gray. So, because there's so much renown you get for claiming one, we still want you to go claim that waypoint. And then there's also the Altars of Lilith, which is basically, those will stay as well. You don't have to rediscover them every season. And that's always been true, the notion around the benefits you get from an Altar of Lilith, like +2 intelligence or +2 dex, those stay with you forever, much like the renowned system of the extra potion charge or the extra obol capacity. those stay with you too. You don't have to go get those.
명망이 문제죠. 릴리트는 다시 할 필요 없다고
Those are
말했었고.
with you. And what's kind of cool is that what we're talking about is we'll preload you that renown. So right. So if I could get
명망은 따로 얘기 없는 거 보니까 다시 해야 되나 봐요.
through Fog of War clearance when I start up season 1, my map will be clear like it is in the Eternal Realm, and I'll already have 1,000 renown in my.
Right. Your renown screen
Right.
will still show, fog. This many areas of the map to be discovered.
Right.
It will just give you credit for the ones that you already discovered, and that
Right.
will translate into starting the season if you have been playing previously on a character with some amount of renown.
Right. Got it. And our intention, so those are the two major that you get credit for. Like we're gonna
Altars and fog.
altars and fog. And so side quests, those are something that's still reset.
지금까지 말한 게 한 요
We're
정도거든요.
looking into the future, maybe that's something else.
근데 이게 좀
Potentially, I mean, it's something that I think we'll continue to evaluate. Like, some things are fun to do every season, and some things are, after you do them a few times, you feel like, why do I have to do this again? And I mean, I think that's something that it's pretty clear on exploring the map and Altars of Lilith.
Yeah.
I think it's less clear on some of those other things.
I know one personal preference. I mean, when I skip campaign on a new character, I kind of use the side quest to kind of
끝나고 정리해드릴게요. 뭔 내용
a
나왔는지.
little more direction. So I actually, again, one person, but I actually like being able to play through the side stories again.
Yeah. And so and just to re-clarify on the Altars of Lilith, obviously players who and how it works right now is if you collect an Altar of Lilith, you get the stat bonuses or whatever bonuses that you have, and those carry over. But now with the additional changes, it will be showcased. The ones that you've actually visited already will now showcase on your map already. So it ends up at least covering off of that, of course. And then, as Rod mentioned, the Fog of War items will be kind of carried over, or not carried over, but removed from as you kind of create new characters. And in terms of time,
시작되기 없는 얘기하고
for some of these, when were we kind of looking for?
That's season
these-
1, right? So it would be.
Yeah, we're looking to get that for season 1. An interesting point here is that that change will also affect alts after it goes in.
Oh, nice, perfect. Yeah.
So alts after season 1 will have the same benefit.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I know I'm slowly getting through my list here. Pull out the cookies.
What I want, I was gonna say, you want some energy cookies, you want some s'mores? I think one of the things that I'm especially encountering too is in the dungeons, when you're going through and clearing dungeons, probably at least the bottom row of my inventory tends to be the gems I've collected along the way. And I know that creates some tension, in terms of when to go back and those sorts of things. So I know the quick answer is always I want a gem tab, or how do I put a different place to put those? But it sounds like we're doing something, we're thinking about it differently.
Yeah, we're looking at inventory tension, essentially.
이번에는 그거 얘기하네요. 우리 가방 부족한 거.
It's the design. Yeah, it's a design term. Anyway, it's basically stuff that clutters up your inventory.
Sure.
And important, awesome stuff that we built and has all kinds of interesting gameplay, but has the effect of taking up lots of space.
Sure.
Like gems.
지들도 보석 얘기하니까 개빡쳐하네.
For example, random idea, gems.
Like gems. This is why it's a campfire chat. We're establishing the baseline expectations.
Oh, no, okay. Yeah,
I think we should just go low.
Yeah, we can
While
only
we're
go
not
so
answering a
low.
question, I still haven't got these cookies open, so I'm making noise
so-
while you're thinking.
When we think
이
about
아저씨
gems,
결국은 쿠키를 먹네.
there are many colors of gems, there are many qualities of gems, and this can have the effect of taking up lots of inventory space. So what we're looking to do, and this is a longer, we talked about fixes that have different time horizons. This is a longer term one. We're looking to get it in around season 2.
Oh, okay.
The idea is to change the way you acquire gems so that they are show up in your materials or currency tab rather than in inventory.
Oh, like when you collect veiled crystals. So rather than it
Right.
even being a thing that you collect in an inventory, it's now just part of your materials.
저 방금 후키 때문에 못 들었어요. 시즌 2쯤에 나온다 그랬어요. 보석 탭?
You go to craft your gem in the same way that you do today, and you just use a certain amount of that material. So it's similar to the amount of equivalent like actual gem inventory slots that you're using now,
Right.
but as materials, and you can use that to craft the gem that goes into
It's
your
kind of a win-win because
그러니까 바로 만들 수가 없나 봐요. 만들고
also
싶은데.
saving you stash space because right now I'm just like filling up my stash with gems.
Yeah.
But now if it's just materials I'm carrying, well, like something I've been there's been discussion around while we're on materials is that there's this notion of, oh, I didn't understand there was caps. Like I am not as hardcore to have 10,000 veiled crystals, but I know some people out there are, and they're realizing like, oh, you can only carry 10,000, and there isn't a way to put veiled crystals into the stash or whatever to do with it. Like, what is the thinking around caps? Because sometimes it's like, oh, we're trying to force you to go do an action. We like much like the opals thing now, like, oh, you go roll something because more opals are falling.
그리고 보석만 문제가 아니고 인장 창고가 진짜 시급해요. 비약 창고랑.
Veiled crystal, like, how do you think about caps and materials?
Yeah, the caps, the materials aren't. There's no particular reason to cap the veil crystals at 10,000. We're just gonna make that bigger.
Yeah, so we're upping the material caps for that, which we've seen a lot of players, especially players that are like level 90 plus. As you're going through dungeons, you're obviously gonna naturally just pick up a lot of gear, and you're gonna salvage a lot of that as well. So you're gonna get to those specific caps that are currently in the game. So I know a lot of those changes are gonna be really beneficial to players who put in a decent amount of hours on those characters, or even if they're already at max level at 100 and they're still farming gear or looking for gear on those characters.
And the time horizon on the cap, lifting of the caps?
I think we have that in
That's actually
that's coming
before
season
season one.
one, right? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that one we will be changing before season
That's
one.
right.
And it'll be incorporated in some in an update.
A future planned
Future
update
planned update.
before season
Because
one.
you love them. You just love rolling those out.
Just like sweating. I know this has actually been an interesting conversation also that I did want to bring up is we've had a lot
보관함
of people,
자체를 늘리진 않을 것
especially
같아요.
content creators and others that have kind of been a little confused on how things like resistances actually currently work within the game. I think there's a lot of people that are actually prioritizing other benefits on gear or stats right now over resistances because they're a little confused on how it works, or they feel that it may not be working at all.
I certainly do that with gems. Like I certainly would rather use my emerald for thorns than like whatever the reduction, like plus 14% resistance, whatever. Like I know my instincts are to go to the more tangible thing initially, and I guess sometimes it can be subtle that people don't pick up on the one-to-one. Like, hey, I know exactly how this is affecting my play. Like, is that?
Yeah, the resistance case is one where the system has a lot of different inputs, and there are some of those have multiplicative scaling, and we have sort of some things we want to accomplish with that system too. We want to encourage players to get more resistances as they go up higher in world tiers, which is why there's an effect on your resistances as you go up in world tiers.
Oh, that might be clear to some people. It was like
네네 맞아요. 그 얘기했어요. 이제 개발 시작하는 것 같은 창고 관련.
Current level of resistance.
근데 클베 때부터 피드백 나왔던 건데 인벤 부족하다고.
Kind of reacquire that resistance.
Yeah, and what we're seeing right now is that because of the way all of these, there's also an effect where your armor provides physical resistance and also provides half that amount of elemental resistances. And because all of these things are interacting in a complex way, it can be hard for people to figure out exactly how they work.
Right.
But regardless of that, the way that it is working in practice is meaning that resistances are less valuable than we would like them to be.
Sure.
And because it's a fairly complex interaction, this is something that's going to take a little bit more time to sort of dial in the right solution for.
Right. But they're still valuable in the short term. It's not like they're like not worth it at all.
Yeah. What happens is as you get up into higher amounts of resistance and higher world tiers, you're seeing the value drop off more than we intend for it. And so that's where we're going to see some changes.
Right. And so because we need to go slow on that kind of a complex change, what are you thinking from a time horizon on that?
That's going to be something that we see around season 2.
Right. Yeah. I think it's worth also managing expectations. The reason why you hear things like, hey, we found something, or we're hearing something, and we're talking already about season 2, which again, we're talking about quarterly seasons, so that's going to be in the fall. Like, why wouldn't you get into season 1? I don't understand. Well, we're like pretty much finishing up season 1 right now. In order to be able to put it through certification, the way that we do our release candidate testing, like we need to be ahead of the game. And the fact that we're only, let's say it's mid to late July and we're already sort of mid-June, so we're like 4 weeks away. It can take a couple weeks to get through cert and everything else. So you kind of have to be out in front of this stuff. And so that's what I was trying to set in one of the official dev streams of managing expectations. When we find something, we're like, it's not a hot fix worthy thing, or something we can't even hot fix because it's not just like changing a variable on a server. It's something that is a complex system that requires real work. It may come a little bit later than you're thinking because of the fact that we have to be so ahead of the game in developing this content for you. So that's why you're hearing stuff like season 2 means season 1 is pretty much done. I mean, it's done from a development perspective, and now it's in the QA and certification phase. So that's why we talk about season 2 as the next sort of window to get stuff out.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are going. I'm seeing chat now going like, why not season 1? Why not season 1? And it's the perfect explanation for it, because in the end of the day, you have to button something up to get it ready for people to actually play it, and we obviously have to do a lot of testing for it, certification and so forth. So just a reminder for everyone, development is a process. It's
an iterative process.
An iterative process, for sure.
That's also a good point. When we think about seasons, one of the things that we think is most important is delivering new content.
Right.
Because that is new stuff for everyone. Like, if we want to make sure that every season is delivering new content, and then on top of that, bring in important fixes, bring in some quality of life improvements. And so, I know that I've seen some lists, like people have helpfully made like some lists, like here are a bunch of quality of life fixes that we would like, or that would help me, as a player. So I think what you'll see is that over time, as seasons roll out, you're going to see those, like we've been talking about with season 1 and season 2. You're going to continue to see those things. You're not going to see a season that's like, sorry, we didn't make any content, but here's a bunch of fixes.
Yeah, and
because we think the content is really important.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Is like Diablo 4 just launched. And we have a lot of stuff planned for the game.
Yeah, and I've had some comments on Twitter where people are like, well, D3 has this thing and D4 doesn't have this thing. And I'm like, well, D3 has been out there for 10 years, iterating and improving, and like D4 has been out there for 10 days. And so like that doesn't mean it's not going to show up. It doesn't mean the iteration and evolution of these things aren't going to continue. Like we're going to keep evolving the game, as fast as we can, and as safely as we can through seasons and hotfixes and patches and expansions. So just because there's something not there today doesn't mean there's no intention to put it there in the future.
Yeah, we definitely evaluate the level of effort and the amount of risk for all of the changes, and that's kind of how we determine, is this hot fixable, like, is it something that needs to be fixed and addressed on the live environment right now? Is it something that would be better to wait until our next planned release vehicle, whether that's season 1 or season 2, throwing out
중간중간에 말하고 싶은 게 많은데 끝나고 다 정리해서 말할게요.
Like Joe was saying, it's super important that we deliver quality seasons with tons of great content to our players. So also super
새 시즌에 엄청난 컨텐츠들이 나올 거래요.
Where it becomes not playable, not viable, or not so fun anymore. So definitely taking all the feedback. We have a very, very long list of things that we want to get to, and like Rod was saying, I worked on D3 for many years, and we improved it over time. And I'm actually looking forward to the point where we can start putting in a lot of those improvements that people are asking for to get it to a super, super polished game that makes everybody happy. Pretty close.
Agreed. I know one thing that has been kind of a hot topic within the community because a lot of players are playing hardcore, and we have seen some, whether it could be a disconnect or a player might be dying, you know, randomly on their own accord, or you know, maybe they have a certain.
나 옆에 메모장에 내가 안 쓰고 시타님이 쓰는 거 복붙해야 되겠다. 시타님 고마워요. 수고 좀 해줘요. 덕분에 방송이 한결 편해요.
Death protection and so forth. I know it's a thing that we've been looking at. We've been looking at everyone's clips, even the painful ones where we're like, oh no, that's awful and so forth. But I know we've been looking at potentially doing some work on that from that end.
Yeah, so there are a few cases here. There are, we've seen some cases where a hardcore hero died during teleport, which is a bug. We've seen potentially some bugs with situations where you should be immune, but you might have died. We're investigating both of those cases, and once we have identified the root cause, we'll tackle fixes for that. You also mentioned cases where the player disconnects, right? These can be some of the most frustrating situations for a hardcore player because in many cases it's completely outside of your control.
그치. 버그로 죽은 거 맞죠. 근데 그런 건 보상 안 해주지, 디아블로는.
Anywhere between you and the server, right?
Yeah.
So those can be especially frustrating. And we have already a mechanism in the game that allows players to escape from boss fights that has very strict controls on it in terms of being a consumable item that's a fairly rare drop, which is called the Scroll of Escape. This is a hardcore only item. It's a consumable scroll. You can use it at any time and teleport to safety. You can bind it to your mouse wheel. It's important to bind it to the...
It's very important to bind it. I do recommend binding it so that you don't run into an issue where you might potentially use like an emote
Instead of your. I mean, you go out with style. I mean, like
Yes.
you know, you're going out emoting while you're being killed.
So we have this mechanism already to allow players to try out something that's extremely difficult in hardcore, and that allows us to have things in hardcore that are very challenging.
Right.
Because without something like this, as a hardcore hero who's invested, you know, hundreds of hours, why would I go and do something where I might die?
Yeah.
There's certainly lots of risk there, and it's very exciting.
Right.
But I mean, I could just get a little stronger first, right?
뭐예요? 비상탈출 만들어준다는 거예요, 하코용?
Allows for even more exciting moments.
Scroll of nope. You're like, nope.
And this is the place where
아, 지금 있어요? 내가 하코 안 해봤어.
controls in terms of being consumable and being a rare drop.
Right.
This is the place where we want to add disconnect protection. So basically, the way that this will work is, if you get disconnected, and this is essentially for any reason. And,
So
and
like,
I
even
want
if your cat pulls the Wi-Fi right out of
yes.
the wall.
Now I want to clarify that
Because the dog would never do
it's
this.
not.
That's true, only cats.
The disconnect case is a very complex situation in terms of determining what's happening.
Sure.
So this is not perfect situation.
Okay.
I'm
Lightning
not
strike on
going
the
to
telephone
guarantee
pole may not trigger.
100%. But what should happen is that when we detect that you've disconnected, if you have one of these scrolls of escape in your inventory, it will trigger, even though you weren't there to trigger it. It will consume the scroll, so you can't just do this as much as you want.
Right.
And it will teleport you to safety.
Right.
So when you log back in after the lightning has subsided, you should be in town.
Just have scrolls. Because they are a limited resource, like obviously. Like
Well, part of it, you have to stop abuse, right? You don't want
Exactly.
people like using disconnects
Yeah.
as ways to do things. It's the same thing, I think, when we were talking about the the sigil change is that one of the concerns, if we didn't put the right rules around it, is that if a sigil automatically teleported me somewhere, I could use that to escape hard content.
Sure.
And so that we always have to. That's part of it. It's not everything is.
근데 렉사가 시리즈별로 계속 있었기 때문에 이런 기능 만드는 건 나쁘지 않은 것 같아요. 악용만 안 된다면.
Things that this can be abused, and we have to manage that too. So. Okay, that sounds good. So I'm Mr. What's the time window on that, Joe? That's my goal now on this. Campfire chat is Rod. Like, when are you getting that done?
I think this is a selfish
That
question.
is also a season 2 time frame for the disconnect protection.
Yeah.
Some of the bugs that I mentioned earlier in terms of cases where immunity, there could be a problem with immunity, or a teleport, a death during the loading screen or something. Those are things that we're investigating right now. And
Could be
so
hot fixed.
it could be sooner.
Yeah, those could be sooner, and then the scroll of escape was disconnection protection would end up being season 2. So, cool. All right, I know I got a few more. Sorry, I know I want to make sure we hit on all these topics. This is obviously really important for the community, and I know that they want to hear about them and so forth. But
Why are my caches higher level than me?
yes, that is a very popular one. Why are my caches higher level than me? I can't open
I
my
can't even
cache.
open the
I
cache.
killed
I
the
wanna know
world
what's in the
boss,
cache.
but I can't open the cache.
What's in the cache, Joe?
아우 즐겨주기님 고마워요.
So in a before season 1, in an upcoming
A
fix.
planned patch.
Yes, that's right.
In the plan patch?
Plan patch.
You will be able to
in the
open
13 pager? Is that what we're doing?
in a planned patch. you will be able to open caches from world bosses. Now, the gear that's in those caches may still be higher level,
At least
but
you can
there's
sell it. Or
yeah, and there's a variety of things you can salvage.
Right.
Some of the stuff in the caches isn't gear. You'll be able to use that.
But at least you can open it and see what's inside.
Yeah.
And it gives you something to work for. You're like, oh, this thing that's amazing, rather than me having to
Yeah.
go and get up to that level and use it in gear, right?
I know. So scaling is a huge topic. I'm just diving right
Is
in.
it maybe too huge? Is that where you're going? What are we doing?
Well, scaling is a big topic. I think players have talked a lot about, like, hey, the world scaling with
Right.
you and the sense of power that you have. I think one thing that we actually talked about earlier, I think addresses some of the scaling questions that we have, which was like nightmare dungeons are that way of also feeling more powerful as you're kind of progressing through them, because you can obviously go into higher level nightmare dungeons, and you'll be able to slowly but surely, get your way through higher and higher level versions of that. The other thing, though, I think, and I've seen this a lot personally myself, where people have been going like, hey, I might be like a level 25 druid, but level 18 gear is dropping. And there's a lot of like attachment to item level, or to the actual level requirement.
Focus on the wrong number?
Yeah, as opposed to the item power. And I think it's a topic I wanted to bring up, just because item power is actually really the number that people should be really focusing on, as opposed to specifically item level, because there are points where you will actually potentially find a higher item level requirement with a lower item power itself. And that's one thing I think that will help with people when they're focusing on trying to become more powerful, is really going for item power, focusing on that specific number in itself, because I know a lot of people have been discussing it online and everything.
And that's what gets when you upgrade at the vendor, like the item power is what's getting upgraded.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of nice sometimes that you can get a slightly higher item power on a slightly lower level item, because it gives that lower level character a bit of a bump and those sorts of things.
Yeah, the item, the required level for an item does loosely correlate with the power of the item in most cases, but there are many situations where that's not accurate.
Right.
And so it's better to look, as Adam was saying, at
Yeah.
the item power item.
I mean, Adam brought up Druid. So one of the things I know I hear quite a bit about is there's a thing where you get into uniques and discussions that like barb uniques are falling for druids, and so what's the issue there?
Yeah, there are a couple bugs where certain barb uniques can drop for druids that we're fixing. and that's going to come in before. I see where you're going here.
I know. You know what I was going to say. So when's that happening, Joe?
It's going to come in before season 1
Okay.
in a planned fashion.
So within the next 4 weeks.
But when
Ish.
I'm playing a class, Joe, can I expect to occasionally see uniques or legendaries drop for other classes?
Yeah, you will. That's a really good point. It's these changes are not. You will never ever see anything for another class.
Right.
It's that there are some specific barb uniques.
이거
that were
스마트
meant to
드럼
drop
얘기인가요?
only for barb, but due to a bug are also dropping for druid, and we're correcting those.
Got it. Okay. Awesome.
And I know we just mentioned this, but in a future update, don't hate me, Ted. A future hotfix is we'll say for right. A future hotfix is what we're trying.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay.
Social features, looking for group, looking like type of features has been a
버그네요, 버그.
topic. Some people
원래
may
스마트
not be,
드랍은
like,
다른 직업 나오랑 10% 1% 이런 식으로 조정해 놓는데
choose not to actually join a clan, or maybe some of their friends or their normal friends are usually logged off during a specific time. Trying to find other people to maybe like join in with you during dungeons and stuff like that can be a little bit of a challenge. We've been hearing a lot of feedback on that. I know that the team obviously is looking into future social features for the game itself. We just need more iteration time, more time to actually think about how we want that to actually be available.
파티
how,
찾긴 게시판 만들어야
accessible it should
되는데.
be and so forth for players to be able to jump into some dungeons with maybe randos or something like that if they want to, if they're looking for it. I know it's a topic that a lot of people have been talking about, but we are looking into it.
근데 랜덤 매칭이 잘 어울릴까? 매칭 얘기하고 있는 것 같거든요.
Like, that's why, again, it's one of those things where you want to make the right choices and take the time to do it right. And it did feel like as a social features, it felt like it's one of those great places to evolve and iterate into. So I think that's a large bucket of features that I could see as we continue to improve quality of life over all the seasons. I could see like social features are just going to get better and better and better over time.
Yep. And the other big thing I know that some PC players have experienced have been a little bit of some like performance and like stability items. It's a team that we have like this graphics engineering team that has been like hardcore like slamming into the problem itself and trying to figure out exactly all the different cases and all the different scenarios. We actually do have some fixes and some items that we're addressing here, and some upcoming client patches that will be hitting players. So it should help out with a lot of those specific scenarios if there's instances that players are actually running into. And again, if you guys actually have any of those issues on your end, feel free to post those in our forums. We scour those, all throughout the day. It's customer service, it's QA, it's community, and we're actually providing all this information over to those teams. Giving as much information as possible is huge, as opposed to like, hey, my computer's not performing very well while I'm playing Diablo 4. If you can give us, extra information, computer specs, etc., where it may have occurred, and details and so forth.
Like a DX diag on the forums is really helpful.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, sometimes there's expectations around how much memory do I actually need, how much VRAM do I actually need, and sometimes like actually because of the way we do seamless server transitions, sometimes if there's if we're doing some maintenance or there's something going on, you could see what you call rubber banding could actually be just a slight delay in the server transition and not actually be related to the game's performance. It may actually just be a networking handoff between servers. So there is no one blanket. I think there's a lot of we run on very low end, which like being able to go all the way down to Gen 8 to going to very high, and each one of them have their own different sets of requirements. And we know that by setting your settings correctly can help you a lot too, like playing with like what is this texture level, does it help or hurt, those kinds of things. But that 13-page document that Adam has in his hand does contain a lot of performance improvements as well. So but we feel really good about where we are, but we do know that there are some issues with specific cases, and the more information we get about them, the more likely we are to be able to address them.
Yep, most definitely. I know, so yeah, there's a ton of different bug fixes and so forth that are still coming down the line, and we plan on addressing all of those. Again, continue using our forums to actually give us that info. I know we do want to take some questions from chat and so forth from Twitch chat. I will do my best to actually announce names. I will announce the names so people know that they can go back into chat.
근데 지금까지 한 걸로만 끝내줘도 만족이긴 한데? 엄청 많이 해줬네. 아, 지금은 그냥 다시 또 농담 쪽으로 돌아와서 그거 하고 있어요. 끝나고 정리해드릴게요. 다 써놨어요, 제가 들으면서.
But yeah, I do want to take some questions from chat itself. As we're kind of like, I have.
끝나가나 봐요. 대놓고 과자 먹네요, 이제 사람들.
You have high expectations.
No, he eats Outback.
So you're saying you wouldn't want another one?
Outback is so good.
Q&A는 미리 받아놨을 거예요. 채팅이 열려있진 않을 것 같은데?
He needs to read the questions.
Yes, I do.
채팅 안 열려 있어.
Questions. I do plan on going through at least some of the questions and continue asking questions as they're coming in. We actually have the community team is actually going through. Huge shout out to the community team. They're in the chat and they're actually going through.
아, 트위치에서도 하는 중이에요, 이거
so
지금?
that I can see them because chat is moving very fast.
유튜브를
let's
보고
see,
있어서.
in terms of, let's see.
근데 이런 건 보통 먼저 받긴 하는데.
Oh yeah, I need to start with the name. I'm sorry. This is a party play question. It's from, oh gosh, I have to pronounce the names. Necrologics says.
Not so hard.
Well, I'm hoping it sounds.
Why are you
like
like
that.
sounding it out like a 4-year-old?
트위치 채팅
I
읽어준대요.
mean, it's like.
네.
weeks or
파티
something.
플레이에 관한 질문을 했는데.
Can we teleport to people without going to town first? Is that can be an option in the future?
지금 되지
So
않나?
we're carefully looking at the teleporting. We want it to be easy to meet up with friends.
어.
The
다른 사람한테 마을
moving
밖으로
town
텔레포트 할 수
is
있냐
our
물어보는 것
normal
같은데.
way to move to places. So the
아, 마을 밖에서 텔레포트 하는 얘기인가 봐요.
It's actually once you know what it is. Like I get if you know it, you're saying like, can I optimize it? But if you don't know about it, like it's really cool that when you join your friend's game, I'm giving Joe Tonditas more. When you join your friend's game, you might be in a separate place of the map than they are. If you go to the capital city or any of the capital cities, they will have a portal to them waiting to the side.
근데 이거는 해줄 만한데
So
뭐
you're
화면
like,
전화
oh, I want
랩도
to join
있고.
your game. Oh, where are you? Oh, I'm somewhere over here. Just hit down on your D-pad. Then you're next to a portal that has their name on it. You click on it, and now or press A, and then you're with them. And so it's been great at playing with parties where you just go like, hey, just press down your D-pad, jump in the portal, and you're with us. And so I get that might not. It's not like a direct, but it's like it's a layover. It's a you have one stop on your way to where you're going. Anyway, actually, I interrupted your answer to give you time to eat your cookie, but are you thinking about optimizing so you can do more direct teleport?
It's something we'll keep an eye on.
Okay.
We aren't planning to change that right now. But
계획 중이라는데요?
this, as Tiffany was saying earlier, this is a game where we are continuing to support it and provide things for years to come, and that will mean that the game evolves over that time as well.
Yep.
We have a question from Old Greg's Place.
아니네.
I think that's an easy one.
That was good.
Yeah. There's
그러니까
after Greg's.
얘는 그냥 별 생각 없고 얘는 계획 중이라고 말했던 것 같은데 누구 말이 맞는지 모르겠어요.
Resource generation, be it from passive or gear.
So we have a variety of buffs coming in a future patch to many things across many classes.
Internet now. Thanks for that. I'm just saying you alluded to buffs, but we're not being specific. So now it's going to be.
하긴 첫 번째 과자는 먹을 줄 알지.
That's true. It's in the top secret document that Adam has.
A lot of this.
Okay.
So builds including builds that use that have issues with resource generation should keep an eye out for things that address that. I want to be careful here though, because resource generation is one of those stats that can very quickly invalidate resource use entirely. It's very easy to end up in a situation where you have resource generation that exceeds any possible resource cost. And while that can be fun in certain situations, like it can be fun to have situations where you feel like you're breaking the game, if it's generally true for everyone, the game ends up being less interesting because you have fewer interesting choices.
Yeah, there's no trade-offs. Yeah.
There's a lot of people still mentioning mob density and so forth in chat, and I do want to just at least clarify to them because, like, obviously, you know, we made tweaks and so forth, and we talked about this earlier, but we made tweaks in terms of like elite mob packs and dungeons and so forth. But we now have established a baseline, and that from that baseline, like we move up. It's not a oh, this like we're gonna continue going down or something like that. So
Joe and I had this conversation recently, just like it's a combination, and you know, correct me if I get this wrong, but it's not just about like, oh, as we think about Nightmare Dungeons and rewards, it's not always going to be like, oh, this one monster is now worth 1 million experience points. There may be times where you want that to be 5 monsters that are worth 200,000 experience points. Like density is a factor of XP per minute, and as well as the actual value of the individual monsters, and so that'll be something that you all are thinking on.
It's something we're continuing to look at. To clarify, the changes to XP that you'll see before Season 1 will increase the XP that you're getting per monster, per elite monster in Nightmare Dungeons.
Right.
It won't increase the total number of monsters in Nightmare Dungeons. That also can also called the density. But that is something that, as a result of the changes that we had to establish a baseline, we do have the ability to tune in the future.
Right.
Yep. Are you guys planning to continue quarterly update style?
Name? Who's asking?
Oh, sorry. Newpoo Games.
와 근데 몹수를 왜 안 늘리냐?
Are you planning to
대부분 빌드들이 몹 많을 때 돌아가는데.
the quarterly update style for upcoming expansions and systems or such? I personally love the updates. That's something to look forward to for every quarter since BlizzCon 2019. We will still be having a lot of developer update live streams. And those, like for instance, our next one will be about Season 1 when you guys do actually.
I kind of. I'll speak as one person. I kind of like, not necessarily go campfire chat aside, I kind of like
디아블로4는 목팩이 엄청나게 부족한 게임인데.
to a 9-page blog personally, and so having dev streams where we can show cool features and talk about them and interact a little bit more versus go read this novel. Like, I like them, I love what we did, I love the transparency because we couldn't necessarily do streams before, but if I had to choose between an 8-page blog and a 45-minute stream, I would choose this stream, but that's just me.
And we still will have blogs around like seasons and announcements and so forth. That's still a thing. So expect to see more live streams, of course, and more campfire chats and everything related to that. Will we get the expanded?
이 동네 QA는 그래도 괜찮은 질문들이 많네요. 어느 동네는 막 무슨 사전 설문조사로 무슨 에스더의 능력을 쓸 수 있으면 뭘 쓰고 싶으세요? 막 이런 거 하고 있던데.
Change our character's appearance within the game. Don't want to make a new character just to change my character's face, hairstyle, etc.
So there are some options for re-customizing your character.
그치 지금 리커스터마이징이 안 되죠. 그 외모 재변경이.
You can't change everything about the character there. That's something that we'll continue to look at ways that we can improve over time. You can also expect to see new options for markings and
그래도 질문을 게임 하는 애들이 하네요. 질문을.
obviously armor and things.
In the shorter term, there'll probably be more. When you do a character create, there'll be more options. Like as we go through, the notion of actually like once you've rolled your character and you're level 60, right now because you can't like change say your hairstyle. That's probably later down the road. That's not our biggest thing we want to do is get more hairstyles into the character creator before we're actually.
장식품 말하는 거겠죠? 그러니까 주얼리나 악세가 옵션 달려 있는 거 말고 외형 변경 가능한 것들을 더 추가할 거래요.
I can go and get a haircut and have a different hairstyle. I don't have to roll a new me. So I understand. I understand
some of us would like to roll a new me if I had to get my haircut.
I understand the question, the desire, the goal.
Oh no, I mean, we all agree with the goal. We're just saying in terms of.
Are we going to add a completed side quest tab?
Who's asking?
Who's asking?
Oh, sorry, I'm so bad at this. It's because it's
At least we all agree on something.
Well, it's like in a different font color, and you just like immediately move off from it. And it's a really hard name. Burn 1 N9 M4N. There we go. I'm just gonna read it out like that because I'm not gonna butcher the name.
You put the forethought to actually look at those elite spellings in case it actually says something.
악몽단장 포탈은 다음 주쯤에 해줄 수도 있을 것 같은데 빨리 해준다 그랬어요.
Just say it by number or whatever as opposed to
You're
saying
safe,
that.
okay.
Them. Okay. Are you gonna add a completed side quest tab to the journal?
We want to improve the things that the journal, or that not necessarily the journal specifically, but that can be tracked through the UI over time to allow more situations where maybe you see something in the game and you want to go back and look at it in the future over time. That's future plans.
I mean, the thing too, I think part of what's driving that, which I totally get there. That makes
뭔가 좀 그지 그 말도 메가데르님이 말한 것도 맞는 것 같아요. 디아블로 3랑 차별을 주고 싶은가 봐. 모팽 얘기하는 거 보면.
things, right? So, though there's a completionist notion of, because we have some surprise side quests that you can't track. So the notion of, oh, I killed a mob, it dropped a thing,
Right.
and there's no way to know that on the map. And right now, there's no way to say, oh, I'm missing that sword falling one, and people could go like, oh, go kill that wolf that drops the sword, or whatever. So but if your desire for knowing, being a completionist around side quests is for renown, you can actually complete renown without doing all the side quests.
And then this is kind of a similar question, and I think this kind of falls across like quality of life. This is from Java Jinx. Are there planned quality of life improvements like search functions in the stash or for specific dungeons? I will tell you, like, again, this is another, like, these are features that will obviously be looked at, and the game is going to improve over time as we go from season to season. Lots of quality of life items will end up kind of appearing. We'll be evaluating them all as they kind of come in. I'm going to take one last question, which is...
And who's it from?
마지막
This
질문.
is from... and this one I think is just a clarification from people. This is from Nexian. It says, can you just re-clear something you said earlier so we can keep all skill points, potion charges, max obels, and paragon points from renown for seasons?
Right.
Ah.
That's an important thing to clarify.
성장 고점 관련된 얘기 같아요.
The renown, so things like paragon points at the end of the renown bar, you will start with some renown. You're not going to get those paragon points that require finishing the renown bar until you fill the renown bar.
Okay, well, so that's my fault because I misunderstood. So it wasn't that they didn't understand.
그건 아니구나.
So currently, like in the Eternal Realm, if I
Right.
on one character I complete the full renown bar, so I get my obels and I get my paragon
Yeah.
points. If I roll an alt, I have those. I have the skill points. I have this potion charge. I have the obels. I have the paragon points. Right now, being that are shared between my characters on my account.
Some elements of the paragon system are shared between characters.
Oh.
Things like the altars of Lilith also give you stat points.
Right, but I'm just saying that's how it works today in the Eternal Realm in terms of going between one character to another. The renown unlocks on the bottom level are account-wide, yes?
In seasons, you will the things that are at the end of the renown bar. You will
뭔
still
말인지
have
잘
to
이해가 안 돼요 이거.
acquire renown to get.
Right, that's why I was just trying to clarify what it is today for alts is different than what it will be in season reset. Right, so today with alts, I clear all on my account, I get it across all my characters. So you're saying when we do a season reset, and if you clear it all on a character, or like when you have a map that's revealed in the Eternal Realm, when I go into the season, the map will be clear.
Right.
I'll have the renown for that, but I won't have like potentially the max 80 obels and
Right.
the paragon automatically unlocked because I haven't discovered enough. I haven't gone and hit all those waypoints that would fill that bar.
Right.
Yeah.
But you
And-
will have the renown for revealing the map, and you'll have the renown for collecting the altars of love, to the extent that you have done that.
Right,
Yeah,
and that'll trigger the other things like potion and sequence and
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah.
And Mr. Joey P, just pinged me saying like, yeah, you get the renown from the Fog of
Sorry,
War
who's
clear.
Joey P? Is that one of the community members?
Joey P. but yeah.
Question from our own team is associated with that.
He mentions you get the renown from Fog of War Clear and Altars of Discovery, which is what Joe had just mentioned, but then enough to get you through the first 2 tiers of renown in each zone. So that's
So that was my fault. I thought it worked the way it works in the Eternal.
그니까요. 기존에 알던 얘기 해준 것
Loading
같아요.
you a bunch of renown that will then unlock the stuff for you. I get it. Yeah.
Got a pocket Joey P over there.
And
Pocket Joey P.
Pocket Joey P. Well, we well over the time estimate that I thought we were going to have, so I
Yeah, really.
apologize,
That's
everyone.
your fault.
We're eating into our lunch.
Facilitated.
But I do want to thank everyone for tuning in. This is our first Campfire Chat. Again, Campfire Chat's really good opportunity for us to actually talk with the community, address specific topics that players have been talking about, and at the same time, just chat.
Yeah, I mean, the intention is we want to have more ad hoc, informal. We don't have to wait till some big thing or whatever. Like, this is a game we're all playing and want to talk about. So we just want to be able to not have this like, okay, the third Thursday of every month we're doing this. Like, we just want to be able to go like, hey, let's talk about the game and with the community. So we're going to try to do these more often and keep them light, keep them casual as best as we can.
Yep, and obviously we still have the hardcore race going on. We actually posted an update on social media yesterday about how many people were up there.
Still like
700. As of yesterday, still like 700 slots for people to make.
좋다. 이거 매번 보자. 너무 좋다.
The statue and
이제 끝나나 보네요.
So they're pouring the cement thing to the statue can go on top of. So so like
오늘 기대 이상이다 진짜.
what, that we're putting the statue on campus? How's that a spoiler?
그리고 난 조셸리 좋아요, 디렉터. 나 얘 좋아.
Even internal people can't see it, you know.
I'm just saying it's kind of cool. I've never had that before in a game where your name, like as the development team is walking to lunch, they can see your name on the statue. I think it's kind of cool, and that reminds us our community and our fans out there who are playing the game, and so.
이거는 로아온 같은 그런 볼륨이 아니고 자주자주 할 거래요, 이런 건.
We made it 1,000 for a reason. We wanted people to be able to enjoy the story and play the game at their pace, and we wanted to get through, our first 10 days plus early access, so that people didn't feel.
그러게 저도 모패는 이해가 안 되긴 하는데 뭐 얘네 고집 같은 건가 봐요.
And we knew for hardcore, bold people who decided to do hardcore like on our first day because definitely a little rock and roll. But we wanted people to have that opportunity. So there's still 700 spots available. So if you haven't rolled a hardcore yet, today could be the day, or I'm sure we still have lots of time to get there. So, and maybe we'll do something around BlizzCon and the statue.
Yeah, who knows? The other thing that I did want to remind people is that obviously our next developer update live stream, we'll be talking about that date soon, but we are planning for that to be in early July. We'll be going over Season 1 details then.
Ooh. Season 1 details.
Ooh,
I
just want to
know
do
what
that
it is.
in unison with you, that's all.
I know. So the zombie thing, we're going to explain the zombie thing?
Yeah, we're going to talk about more about zombies.
Zombies.
Yeah. It's a really cool season.
It
Can't wait
is.
to go over all
It
the
is not.
details.
If you didn't watch the previous
Joe
stream,
now has to clear up.
Wait, you can't
네,
have.
맞아. 행운 작품
the
얘기했는데
previous stream,
Right.
그
it's not zombie.
모팩이 많아지면 이 게임은 행운적중 빌드들이 너무 개 좋아지고.
We were just referring back.
But yeah, so make sure to tune in for that, and of course, we'll have more of these campfire chats. There's still lots of updates that are.
세 번째 남자가 결정권을 많이 쥐고 있는 게 아니고 금강산이에요.
Tiffany.
강원기임 디아블로에.
Just keep rolling.
And we'll have of course all those patch notes and details up on the site once those are available. As you guys heard, a lot of these changes are going to be coming before Season 1. So we'll make sure to keep you guys informed. Make sure to follow us on social at Diablo on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc.
Here, smash that subscribe button for you.
Smash that subscribe button, guys. Like and subscribe. But yeah, thank you guys again, and we'll see you on the next stream.
야, 좋았다 오늘. 너무 좋았는데요. 한번 내용 정리해 드릴게요. 처음부터 못 보신 분들도 있고 영어로 말해서 저도 여러분들 도움받아서 좀 정리한 게 있는데 좋네요. 위에서부터 정리를 해보면 마지막 질문은 안 적었어요. 좀 애매한 것 같아서. 일단 제일 중요한 게 악몽던전 텔레포트로 바로 들어갈 수 있게 계산해준다 그랬고, 그 다음에 그 악몽던전에 대한 미래를 좀 말해줬는데 전용 드랍템이 나오는 얘기를 잠깐 하긴 했고요. 그리고 그 경험치도 늘린다 그랬고, 그리고 요 악몽던전 텔레포트 같은 경우에는 한 달 내로 시즌 전에 추가 계획이라고 했어요. 그리고 메인 파밍 컨텐츠로 발전시킬 생각이라 그랬어요. 근데 이거를 진작해야지. 아직도 안 돼 있어갖고 지금 아무도 안 돌잖아. 원래는 그리고 악몽던전이 룬 업글을 위한 컨텐츠로 계획이 됐었는데 라는 얘기도 했었거든요. 근데 앞으로는 이런 식으로 바뀔 거라고 했고요. 그 다음에 중간에 좀 메인으로 말한 건 아닌데 알아보기 힘든 장판류 시각효과 개선할 거라고도 했고, 그리고 시즌 넘어와가지고 얘기하는 건데 여기는 그 시즌 넘어오면은 좀 이쁘게 정리를 하자. 미리 했으면 릴리트는 찍혀있을 거고, 그 다음에 요즘에는 우리 부캐 만들어도 미니맵이 안 열려있잖아요. 웨이포인트가 안 찍혀있는 대신에 미니맵도 탐험되어 있는 거는 다 열려있을 거라고 해요. 그니까 우리 부캐 만들었을 때 그 대도시 웨이포인트는 부캐 만들어도 다 열려있잖아요. 그거 말고 다른 웨이포인트들은 다시 찍어야 되는데 맵이 열려있을 거래요. 그 캐피탈은 딱히 다를 게 없는 게 지금도 부캐 만들면 대도시는 웨이 다 찍혀있어요. 그리고 발견된 지역의 릴리트는 유지를 해준다 그랬는데 이게 저는 맨 처음에 뭐 더 생긴한 줄 알았는데 그게 아니고 사람마다 발견한 게 있고 안 한 게 있어서 그렇게 되는 것 같아요. 뭐 시즌 넘어갈 때 다 발견 안 한 사람들도 있을 수 있으니까. 그리고 인벤토리 얘기도 했는데 인벤토리 보석 재료 탭으로 갈 거라고 말했는데 이거 미리 만들어 놓은 기능이 아니어서 오래 걸린다고 해서 시즌 2쯤에 해준다 그랬는데 이게 이해가 안 되는 게 보석 인벤토리 얘기는 클베 때부터 나왔는데 아직도 안 해주셨다는 게 좀 이해가 안 되긴 함. 그리고 재료 상한선 지금 10,000개씩 있는 거 있잖아요. 그거는 시즌 시작 전에 바꿔줄 거라 그랬고요. 요거는 바꿔줄 생각이었나봐요. 그 다음에 우리 아이템 옵션이나 정복자에서 챙기는 저항 있잖아요. 냉기 저항, 번개 저항 이런 거. 이런 거는 엔드 던전에서 던전별로 세팅할 일이 생길 거래요. 나중에 극엔드로 가면은. 근데 이제 거기에 따라서 상응하는 보상을 준다는 건데 이거는 뭐 지금 단계에서 게임 가지고 예측을 해보기에는 좀 힘들지만 마지막 엔드 던전에서는 그니까 뭐 예를 들면 모든 몹이 번개창 속성을 가진 이런 맵 팩이 있잖아요. 그런 맵 옵션이 있잖아요. 그런 거 얘기하는 것 같긴 한데 추가적으로 뭐가 생길지는 모르겠어. 아니면은 뭐 아예 새로운 시즌별 컨셉 던전이 생길 수도 있는데 그런 거는 저항이 없으면은 못 버티게 설계할 건가 봐요. 그러니까 우리 같은 경우에는 장비나 파라곤 보드에서 저항을 챙길 수 있는 식으로 짜 놔야 되겠죠. 뭐 예를 들면 파라곤 보드에서도 가는 길에 3포인트만 더 찍으면은 2포인트만 더 찍으면은 냉기 저항 뭐 12%를 챙길 수 있고 이런 식의 노드들이 좀 있잖아요. 그런 걸 이용해야 될 일도 있을 수도 있고 아니면은 부위별로 우리가 저항템을 따로 구비해둬야 됐을 수도 있고 그런 식으로 할 일이 생긴다고 그랬는데 이제 보상도 그에 따라서 올려줄 테니까 걱정 말라 그랬고 맞아. 그리고 그것도 있었어. 저 내용도 있었어요. 저항이 지금 별로 의미가 없다는 얘기도 했었는데 그거는 이제 앞으로 바뀔 거라 그랬음. 근데 지금 시스템에서 저항은 의미가 없는 게 맞긴 함. 그 원소 데미지 들어올 때 50%밖에 적용이 안 되기 때문에 그게 조금 문제가 있는 것 같긴 해요. 그리고 요거는 이제 클라이언트 패치만 봤을 때 그 종이로 13장짜리가 새로운 시즌의 내용이기 때문에 기대 많이 해달라는 얘기를 중간에 했었고 그리고 번외로 얘기한 느낌이긴 한데 내가 하코 유저가 아니어서 그럴 수도 있는데 하코 캐릭 포탈 타다 죽는 경우 많았잖아요. 어제만 해도 100레벨 캐릭터 스트리머 하나 죽었다며 그 포탈 탔는데 근데 이게 POE나 아니면 디아블로3나 보면은 어떤 식으로 되냐면 포탈을 타서 움직이기 전까지는 몹들이 우리를 인식을 안 하고 우리는 무적이에요. 한 걸음이라도 움직여야지 무적이 아니거든요. 근데 그렇게 만들어 놓은 게임인데 버그로 적용이 안 됐대요 지금까지. 그래갖고 그런 거 고쳐준다 그랬고 그거를 떠나서 이런 문제들이 앞으로 생길 거기 때문에 요거는 근데 확정은 아니었던 것 같고 말하는 거 보니까 그 지금 하드코어 저도 오늘 여러분한테 들은 건데 하드코어를 하면은 약간 사망 방지용 몇 개가 있다 그랬잖아요. 비상 탈출이랑 뭐 그 사망 뭐 계속 빠는 건 아니지만 사망 방지 물약도 있다 그러고 5분짜리 그런 거 있는데 그거 말고 렉사는 막을 수가 없잖아. 그거 우리가 못 쓰니까. 그래서 들고만 있으면은 그 렉사 같은 거 막아주게 자동으로 써지는 거 스크롤 같은 것도 생각 중이래요. 네. 근데 요것도 그냥 생각 중이라고 말했음. 그 다음에 주간 보스 잡으면은 보관함이 80렙제로 나오는 거 버그예요. 이거 오픈 베타 때 렙제 없었는데 그냥 이거 시즌 1 전에 고치겠다고 했네요. 그리고 드루이드로 지금 양소문 철퇴가 나오기 때문에 야만 고유가 떨어진다면서요. 요것도 버그여서 고칠 거라 그랬고 그 다음에 디아블로 3식으로 파티 매칭 시스템을 생각 중이라고 얘기했는데 요거는 뭐 그냥 뭐 그런 거 봅니다. 나와봐야 할 것 같아요. 어떤 식으로 될지는 던전별로겠죠 아마도. 이게 좀 디아블로 3식으로 해석하긴 했는데 그게 이제 디아블로 4랑 3랑 다른 부분이 있으니까 디아블로는 이제 방 만드는 시스템이고 그 다음에 이거는 이제 던전별로 따로 있을 수가 있는 거기 때문에 그리고 QA 시간에는 질문 크게 많진 않았고 별 내용 없는 것도 있었는데 그 중에 추려볼 거 있으면은 마을 안 가고 파티원한테 갈 수 있냐라는 질문이 있었는데 요거는 그런 거 같은 느낌에 제가 뭐 영어라서 정확히 알 수는 없는데 별 생각 없는 것 같아요. 고칠 생각. 뭐 생각해보겠다라고 대답했기 때문에. 그리고 몸밀도 같은 경우에는 요거는 나 오늘 방송 중에 유일하게 이해 안 됐던 부분인데 에리두나 이런 쪽에서 몸밀도가 많았던 게 수치가 비정상적으로 나온 거였고 몸밀도를 늘릴 생각은 없고 몹단 경험치를 늘리는 방향으로 패치를 하겠다 그랬던 것 같아요. 네. 근데 이거는 우리가 예측을 해보기에 서버 문제일 확률이 제일 높긴 하죠. 그리고 게임 시스템 자체가 행운 작중은 아까 자원 얘기랑 섞어서 얘기를 했는데 우리가 사실은 모팩이 많길 바라는 이유 중에 하나가 자원 걱정 안 하려고잖아. 휠 돌 때나 아니면 행운 작중을 이용해서 자원을 활용하는 빌드들은 모팩만 많으면 무적이잖아 사실. 그것 때문에 그런 것 같아요. 근데 나는 행운 작중에 상한선을 오히려 정해놓고 모팩은 늘리는 게 재미를 줄 것 같은데. 그러니까 예를 들면 행운 작중은 최대 10마리 타겟한테만 적용이 된다라고 해놓으면 모팩이 아무리 늘어도 써는 맛은 그대로고 그 다음에 행운 작중 관련으로 생기는 문제는 없지 않나요? 이런 쪽으로 생각해 볼 수도 있는데 무조건 몸밀도를 늘리는 건 안 된다고 말하는 거는 살짝 아쉽긴 해요. 이게 확실히 대규모 몹들을 썰어버릴 때 재밌는 게임인데 장르가 그래서 이 부분은 조금 이해가 안 되긴 하는데 이렇게 말했고요. 그다음 외모 변경 기능은 앞으로 추가할 거고 추가 외형들도 추가할 거고 뭐 장신구나 장식품 같은 거 추가한다 그랬고 그 다음에 추후에 변경도 가능하게 할 거라고 그랬습니다. 요 정도 얘기가 있었던 것 같은데 1시간 조금 넘는 짧은 방송인데 기대하지 말라고 하더니 생각보다 기대를 할 만한 내용들이었던 것 같아요. 네크 10호 가시성은 요쪽에 섞여 있는 것 같아요. 아마 통째로 해줄 건데, 여기에 추가로 있었던 게, 네크 10호기고, 내가 볼 때 그런 것도 포함될 것 같아요. 엘사 장화 신으면 참외의 경갑. 요런 것도 아마, 고쳐줄 것 같고, 명망 같은 경우에는 시즌 시작하면 새로 해야 된다고 말했어요. 그냥 둘러둘러 말했는데 결국은 새로 해야 되는 것 같아요. 릴리트는 그대로. 요 정도 내용이 있습니다. 요 정도로 정리를 하면 될 것 같네요. 오늘 깔끔하고 담백하게 해가지고 앞으로도 이런 자리 많이 만들 거라 그러니까 기대가 되네요. 너무 내가 원하던 그니까 막 약간 인싸 축제가 아니고 진짜 게임 생각만 하는 놈들끼리 얘기하는 느낌이라 좋았어요. 오늘 방송. 그게 그리고 시즌2 때 말한다는 거는 오히려 그때 제때 해주면 다행이라고 생각하는 게 블리자드 커버 치는 건 아니고 괜히 말하고 일정 못 지키는 것보다는 그니까 시즌2 때 해주겠다는 게 얘네도 할 수 있으면 지금 하는데 지금 개발 시작하는 것들을 시즌2까지 해서 해주겠다는 것 같아요. 네. 근데 일단 오늘 방송 보고 느낀 게 뭐냐면 아쉬운 거 없지 않지. 디아블로4 운영 지금까지 답답한 것도 있고 그 다음에 요런 것도 불만인 점 있고 그런데 일단 그래도 블리자드가 사활을 건 게임이라 그런지 역대급으로 빠른 피드백에 커뮤니케이션도 좀 활발하게 하는 느낌인데요. 오늘 보니까 그리고 실시간 Q&A도 이거 트위치 생방송에서 받았단 말이에요. 그래서 저는 오늘 방송 되게 재밌게 봤고 다음에도 이런 식으로 할 건데